Salutations, incarnations. Welcome back. This is channel 7 once more. In this particular place, you find yourselves right in the middle of two pieces of content, which will now be fused to you by now. I will now add the second piece of this content in direct follow on with these words you are now hearing. I wanted to separate them in order so that they would not be overwhelming. And not be too much to process, for it's important that each of these pieces be processed naturally and well to form a successful basis for self-transformation. So this is the part 2 of the part 1, and it's essential to watch part 1 before you watch this part 2. So if you've just tuned in and you happen to have never seen my work before, feel free to watch this, but understand that and the link for part 1 will be below. Please do watch part 1. Before you continue watching this, if you want to get the best benefit out of it. And if you just want to go for lucky, by all means, go for lucky. And let's see what happens next. Welcome. The perfect relationship begins. It begins at birth. Its journey begins at birth. Birth of us humans in the fourth kingdom. We are born, some of us say we are born whole. We are born perfect, complete. Now, we are certainly not complete. We are incomplete, but we do have a wholeness. There is a certain integrity in the newborn, a purity, a wholeness that is there. As we grow up, this wholeness is quickly lost in order to learn how to function, navigate in this world. You've got to learn to skip and jump and run through the hoops and use your legs and your limbs, and be aware of your instincts and your mind and understand what everything is. Just come to know it. It takes years and years, decades really. So we come into this world as whole but incomplete beings. And in the process of this, every individual's life, we lose that wholeness in order to complete ourselves. The process of the beginning of incompletion, in our attempt to complete ourselves, we lose the wholeness. But as we shall see, the end of this journey is not the loss, but the gain. For we gain wholeness again, even though in the meantime, the intermediate phase appears that we lose it. But now we shall come to the real understanding of the journey of individual life as well as collectives. As we reach adolescence, the last evolutionary phase of our individual lives is unleashed between 12 and 14, generally, where the endocrine system comes online. The full reproductive powers, the full spectrums of life. The mind has evolved enough to be able to, at its basic level, entertain nearly any idea. The mind itself is still in evolution and will still evolve for at least another 5 to 7 years. Although many minds go very much in advance of that and faster. Generally speaking, the mind is still in evolution. The hearts are still there to be evolved, and yet the body is ready. The body is ready as a foundation for the being to now explore life. This is adolescence. And with this power comes the awareness of a unity, a self. I am myself, I am contained, I have friends, relationships, mother, father, brothers, sisters. I am a self, but I interface with other selves. Even though I am whole, I am contained within myself, and nobody can get into and past my barriers, and I cannot get into others. I am a separate life form. And yet with the awareness of polarity, of gender polarity, the arising of the energy of the maturation of the endocrine system, sexual awareness comes in, and the last gateway endocrine chakra opens up, and all the energy of life floods into the system and makes itself manifest in physical biology as readiness. And this readiness transforms us into beings suddenly full of need, full of yearning, where before we were quite whole and quite contained. Suddenly we are aware of a duality, of a polarity that is a significant part of our makeup suddenly. This is a very confusing time. That's why adolescents are generally confused. Blessings upon you. We've all been that, those who have survived it. We've been confused. And yet we understand, and if you transit through it, you understand something of it. So trust those who have been before it, been through it. Trust your parents, adolescents, because they have been through this and they understand something of it that you do not yet. Even though you must go through it, some guidance can be useful. Do not deny everything, even though it is commonplace for the adolescents to reject and refuse all. especially the love that they were given and that has brought them to the place they are, so too shall they learn to revere that love, come out the end. And all parents wait for this time for their adolescents to return. Nevertheless, we are still there, and in this time the beginnings of relationships begin, true relationships, although we learned about them with mother, fathers, in families, as friends. Now the beginning of the most personal relationship will begin that you will ever know. Almost. The most personal relationship that you will know outside yourself. There's a key giveaway to a future thing there. So relationship, the drive for relations are born. Suddenly we are as half circles, masculine and feminine, male and female, entering the world, walking through the world and feeling this great openness that once we were whole. Once we were more or less complete, or at least if not complete, feeling it. Suddenly the word of essence opens up the fact that we are glaringly not complete. And we yearn with all of our being to be complete. And of course, suddenly relationships between male and female are born. Naturally. This is the place, the opening place has opened up as a necessary component of how we are attracted to one another. You see? These attraction points are our needs. I need this, where I'm open, where I most seek to close is my greatest need. For my greatest need is my unity, is my closure. And yet, achingly, I cannot, except temporarily, should I find another who appears matched to my need and made as if some invisible but visible, beautiful counterpart. So the masculine and feminine find each other and they merge and they find for a time, a moment of unity. A moment of rest inside each other for a time, just for a time, a few seconds, a few minutes, where this wholeness is experienced. The love that belongs to that wholeness is felt. This is the first step, the first evolutionary impulse and outcome of our journey into relationship. And so we begin our lives and begin to experience our adulthood as a series of collisions between ourselves and others. Yes, but mostly it's along the world of intimate relationships, which are the foundation of pretty much all other relationships in our world, including that to ourselves, which we have not explored yet, and our civilization does not explore and help us explore the relationships we have inside ourselves. That's why they're often lacking. That's why relationships, one of the reasons relationships are actually so fragmented and never last very long, because we have very little knowledge of our own selves. That will change very soon. With the awareness of such things will come the increasing importance of understanding how we ourselves are made, and these talks form an important and integral part of this awareness dawning. So adolescence, adulthood, the same dynamic plays a part. Yes, we play the whole game of adulthood, mother and father, not mother and father, but men and women in the world, seeking relationships, seeking love, seeking purpose, seeking life, just getting through life every day. Yeah, finding a work to do, suddenly having kids, you reproduce, you make love, you make children, you got responsibilities. Suddenly, until the birth control was developed, this was just an unavoidable process. So humanity was kind of enslaved to its own desire to experience life and desire to be one. It produced by outcome progeny, and progeny produced society and produced obligations and family structures and the need to live. And suddenly the engine of evolution was part of every single person's life. You're either part of a family as a creator of it or as a product of it. And this goes for all of us. This great drive seems to never end. We spend our entire lives, this is a talk in and of itself, our entire lives. And I won't go into this so much in depth. This will be another talk, because it's another whole talk in itself to understand the depths of this. But suffice to say that we seldom maintain this wholeness. Even if you meet somebody and at the very best outcome, your needs align so much, and the changing of these needs, you see, that is what usually happens when relationships begin. The needs are aligned, and over time each person has different needs. And these needs evolve and change. And at the beginning, these two people meet together and their needs are completely aligned. Individual needs aligned. It's like a perfect business. Win-win. I win, you win. I want this, I want this. Yeah, we want the same. Great. This is the model of, this is how we experience unity at a practical level on the planet. Two people wanting the same thing, conjoining resources, doubling their potentials, making the means by which new life can be created and finding a purpose and meaning in life. It's beautiful. That's the engine. Now, at the same time, it's also fraught with dilemmas and problems and all kinds of shenanigans and roller coasters. And, you know, the roller coaster of life is often emotional, often relational. And it is because these things begin, individual needs change. And as the needs change, the grab points to another person's, I got the same needs as you, they become weaker. At some point, the relationship begins to fragment. It's not finished yet, but ultimately will, as the needs change. If they do not readjust themselves and the needs evolve towards each other, these needs will ultimately become disparate and separate again. They'll be like, oh, you don't fulfill my needs anymore. You don't fulfill mine either. Thank you for the journey. And here we are again on this great roller coaster of where's the one with which this will last with the needs, but you do not yet even understand yourself. Your needs are ever changing yourself. How can you hope to gain something permanent when you do not even understand your own needs? And so that's why this goes on incessantly. Yes? And will continue to do so. Until some genius came up with the idea of self-development. Thanks, Eastern wisdom. Because without Eastern wisdom, the necessary feminine influx into the masculine Western first world architecture of the 60s and 70s, sitting atop its accomplishments of fifth subrace, high technical evolution and supremacy and arrogance and hubris, suddenly this influx of feminine, collective, ancient, balancing wisdom come in, yoga, meditation, these things entered the world, and people began to realize that they actually are on a journey of completing themselves. And their failure to find that completion in others was obviously an inherent byproduct of the nature of the relationship system, that it's bound to fail. Until you have no needs anymore. When you have no needs anymore, well, there's nothing to be attracted to, really. And so there's actually no relationship. So as long as the attractive and the needs are there, there is failure. And so that failure led people to appreciate the influx of Eastern wisdom, which said, well, you are indeed a half circle, and you are indeed a half circle. However, you do not need to rely on the external to find closure. You can find it yourself. Wow. This heralded in a whole generational shift in awareness of what spirit, the legacy that spirit leaves behind, the little signs it leaves behind to point you back towards it, that religion and storytelling has traditionally carried through itself throughout time. These reminders, as this is one. And so we find ourselves at the place where we are now seeking, many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people on the planet are seeking valiantly, since yoga and meditation came in, and breath work, and all the infinite varieties of ways by which we can increasingly find ourselves. And this finding ourselves all has one thing in common, all one thing, no matter what you do. It's this: the half circle is seeking to close itself. Okay? And as you begin this journey, my dear brothers and sisters, you will begin a journey of increasing loneliness. For here you are part of the mass of the people, the great majority, whose needs are met by others, whose fulfillment lies in the relationship with others and with the world outside itself. Sometimes the world can be a placeholder for the other, and feel complete, finding your purpose, your meaning in relationship with their gender or with something else in your life. We are seeking some form of completion. Some of us find it, but ultimately that's the mass of humanity. When you start to realize, when you start to entering this fifth kingdom, the glimmerings of this standing before the portal begin to show you that there is another journey that must be undertaken. This is a preparatory journey indeed. This preparatory journey leads you to the understanding that as you close your circle, this takes work, people. This is not a walk in the park for anyone Closing your circle means increasing self-reliance, not just physically, but energetically, mentally, emotionally. This is the outcome of transformation, of intent, of resilience, of enduring collapse, chaos, conflict, destruction, endings, turmoil, confusion in our individual lives. And the surviving of them. And we are destined to survive, remember, because we are consciousness able to become identical with everything. And as you become identical with a collapse, with a trauma, with a turmoil, with a confusion, you also soon tire of this and withdraw the consciousness, and suddenly that loses hold on you, and suddenly your curiosity is engined, and that leads to a revelation that suddenly the turmoil is dispersed, and suddenly the same engine of consciousness, the ability to become identical with anything, leads you ever onward through these veils and veils of consciousness until this is what we are doing now. And so we are led to this place of greater closure. And as you do this, you find yourself with less and less people to relate to. Hey, these are my needs. These are my interests. What are your needs? What are your interests? Oh, I don't really have those needs and interests anymore. Oh, so you're better. There's lots of things, lots of incompatibilities going on between these two. Ultimately, all this being knows is it has begun to close itself and has less needs than it did before, less interest. The interests are different. There's more self-containment going on in the being itself, more composure, more intelligence, more everything really, because it's more self-contained. It only needs less from the outside world, whereas here we need everything from the outside world. Everything. Everything! And as long as you stay open like this, you will get everything from the outside world, and it will stay, you will keep hungry. You will stay the hungry ghost, never, ever satisfied by what is filling you up. The hole that can never be filled. The only way to fill that gap, that void, my brothers and sisters, is self-development. And so those beings who then begin to term themselves as spiritual beings, for they come to know spirit in ways they did not know before, more intangible, more personal, more felt, more subtle, more multidimensional. Things dawn upon them. As this journey closes, they realize they close the circle. The closer they get, the less people there are in the world. The less people to relate to, the lonelier it gets. That's another hardship on the path. Man, I had friends everywhere. Everywhere I went, I had friends. It was so easy to make friends. Well, no, you're not going to match. Even for a time, you're not going to match. At least not for them. And neither for you, to be honest. For you are set aside with less, but ultimately you only seek that which may also offer that which you may offer self. Or a promise of closing, of greater closure. So we seek the teachers, we seek the leaders, we seek the luminaries. Those beings of the fifth kingdom, and incidentally, we tie in again here to the seven kingdoms, for the seven kingdoms are iterations of humanity that carry this message, carry the proof and the reality of a higher dimensional existence. And remember, these higher kingdoms no longer take a different form from us, for the fourth kingdom is the final form. The fifth kingdom looks the same as the fourth kingdom. The geniuses look, to all intents and purposes, to be the same. It's only when you look a lot closer that you can see the difference. And so, relationship has led us to the point where we are attempting to close ourselves, and this is a valiant goal. And yet, this journey of closure actually is comprised of this attempt to close the half circle is in fact another symbolic dynamic. It is the mind, which is a circle, and the heart, the thinking and the feeling aspects of ourselves. The heart is also a circle. It has a border, a barrier. The more you feel, the greater that circumference will be. The greater your thoughts expand, the greater the circumference of that thought sphere. It's an invisible, imaginary sphere around the mind and an imaginary sphere around the heart. Okay? And as you expand your mind, or you expand your heart to become greater levels of resilience and love and compassion, both of these are valid vehicles of evolution, by the way. You can just choose whichever you want. There are the magicians and the mystics. Humanity is divided, just as we have active and passivity and will and love and mind and heart and electricity, magnetism, fire and water, endless amounts of these. We have these two principles. Okay? Now, this process of the mind's expansion where it learns things, and the heart's expansion where it feels one with, feels the beginning of love as it expands wider, greater love. It can hold greater love. As the mind expands wider, its circumference can hold more thought, can encompass more. And the space, the infinite space which that is the mind's terrain, the mind's navigation, which is infinite, is borderless. That's why the mind is infinitely fascinated with the labyrinth, with the endless puzzle, because ultimately the mind knows no limits to its sphere, just as the heart knows no limits. Ultimately there is a limit, and that limit is its perfection. And that is its dissolution, for it's no longer required as a vehicle and will give birth to another vehicle, which is the purpose of this talk, to describe how through the attainment of the highest form of one vehicle, it is subsumed and converted into another higher vehicle. No longer needed. Amazing. So the mind and the heart undertake this journey of closure. As this is attempting to happen, it's actually the expansion of the mind and the heart. And where each of us are in these vehicles, the magicians and the mystics, those who expand via the modalities of the heart, devotion, the guru, the follower, the helper, those who bow and serve, who are the lovers, the adorers of life, who serve, to whom existence is a her. No matter how much it is called a he, or may be given that name, all who serve know that existence is love, and that life and God is love. Yes? Just as all who go home, who find their path home through their minds, the magicians, mystics, magicians, they too glimpse, when they expand far enough, a glimpse of the mind of God, something so vast that it contains something that just, everything stops, and there is this vast stillness in which everything in the universe is presented to you. And you see it all at once. 1 million TV screens showing you the truth at the same time. And you can only just witness it. It can never be expressed, except through your own radiation, your own energetic radiance. So in this fifth kingdom, we approach it by expanding ourselves. The minds and the hearts are expanding. As they do, this field closes more and more. As more knowledge, as more peace, as more love comes in, we find ourselves relating in completely different ways, learning to find different kinds of relations. All this, in the last few generations, we've had many different forms of relating come up, many different forms of self-identification, even of gender, this massive confusion of gender, which is intentional, by the way, and it's meant to sidetrack human evolution, which I will talk to in another talk. But it's actually a sidetrack. It's actually a hijacking, an intentional hijacking, which we will talk to separately. But now we're going to stay with the nature itself and our abiding within it and by it. And to be led by it is to find it, for it beckons us towards itself. So this perfect relationship is the place and the moment when the mind understands its role and the heart understands its nature. When these two things are complete, this circle closes. It does not close forever. It's but a moment, a momentary awareness where something happens in your understanding or your heart, precipitated by either, depending on where you find your strength and where your evolution is taking place, that just closures something. And that closure gives you a moment, a glimpse of wholeness, of completion in your consciousness. This is the first glimpse through the doorway. This is the first time the portal itself opens to you. And it ultimately takes the form as it did externally, as we find our own self closure returns us to the circle we began as birth. How we began as an egg, as one single circle, one unit. We find ourselves come back to this, however, encompassing now an enormous amount of creation within this wholeness. And as we do this, we look out upon the world and we find nowhere to call home and no being to call home, except those rare unicorns, let me call them, the rare creatures in the universe that have come close to the same, in the same moment, found the same awareness. Even though it may not be sustained, it is revisitable, it is reproducible, and will be. As the first time it happens means that it's proof that it can happen again. And so we just have to find the means until we are there permanently. And when this happens, and these two beings meet. Oh, when these two beings meet, what is this? What is this? But the symbol of these two things that have undergone this immense effort to become a vortex of self-containment together with another. Suddenly these two vortexes, when they merge, form another great vortex. This is not without reason the symbol of infinity, the Mobius continuum. And so this external relationship, which we find, is the perfect relationship when your needs are all met by the self, and her needs are all met by the self, and yet all having needs met, you realize the most profound of relationships is made possible. This is the perfect relationship, the perfect relationship. That which we seek, ever seek here, and never find, and never can find for long. Only moments given us. Moments of, I'm home. And then the sadness, the great heartbreak of the loss, which is the loss of this wholeness, really. Not the loss of any particular person. It's the loss of the wholeness we felt with that person. And they felt with us, and we feel together. And how it must be so, how must we lose each other? Why must this wholeness be lost? It's one of the great tragedies of existence. And yet, part of going through that and understanding that is the development of resilience. And this resilience is an enormous part of the process of the heart's expansion and the mind's expansion of being able to close your own circle. So every goal contains within it the seed of its own attainment. No seed ever sees the flower, it says in a Zen proverb, beautiful proverb. No seed ever sees the flower, except that the seeds of the flower, when planted in this construct, will remain sentient in their own flowering and culmination. This most exquisite gift of life to itself, to its children, which we are, is a great blessing. Outside in the world, no seed ever sees the flower. It becomes transformed, unrecognizable. And yet we, who are the seed, also become the flower and remain conscious throughout both and realize this cycle has completed. And so as it completes, you are no longer able to do anything but interact in this makeup. You yourself become a part of infinity, walking through infinity. And wherever infinity walks around as well, you glimpse it, you see it. For it forms an energetic bond with you. Now, let's turn this symbol, which is the symbol for you and the other, let's turn it upright. Let's remove the other from the equation. And now we see, turning it around, we have the figure 8. The holy symbol 8. The symbol is the same symbol, but it's now the internalized version. As the Mobius continuum, the infinity in which it is the externalized version of the state of consciousness, how it propagates through infinity, through the external world, magical. how it propagates to the internal world and creates transformation and evolution there is its upright version. Not inverted, 90 degrees. And 90 degrees, by the way, is the actual dimensional. It's the shift between dimensions. In the second dimension, just a very, very brief runaway. In 2 dimensions, there's basically X and Y axis. X and Y. You can go in any direction as long as it's 90 degrees from each other. Now, in the 3rd dimension, another 90-degree axis is added to the current 90 degrees. So we get 3-dimensional space rather than 2-dimensional space. The 4th dimension is nothing more than another 90 degrees added to that. Does the mind in. It does your head in. The mind attempting to conceive of a 4th-dimensional cube, which is called a tesseract, by the way. If you ever want to look into that, just look it up and you'll find many attempts by the human mind to conceive of or embody or envisage such a 4th-dimensional object. Beautiful and fascinating. Coming back to us, this figure 8 is the perfect relationship again, but this time within self. The mind, the masculine, has married the heart, the bride. When this takes place, when these 2 spheres meet, the moment is when they form the 8, not when they're closing, not when they're almost, even though it is certainly beautiful to conceive of. So they are almost there, but only when they complete themselves do they join. And one completing before the other can help the other complete also. So when this happens, what happens is an actual overlap. These 2 circles, once separate, suddenly by virtue of their completion, suddenly are drawn into like a universal position to each other. Okay? And this takes place through the science of advanced mathematics in the cellular kingdom by taking a sphere, going from the center of that sphere to the circumference of that sphere, and inscribing another sphere of the same size. You have it? The sphere. When they merge, when each completes itself and finds connection to the other sphere of self, this merger, this interference creates a whole new construct of consciousness within the self. And suddenly the 2 circles shift into an overlap mode, which is the exact same overlap mode as above, so below. The first egg, the egg of creation, that when the ovary, when the egg meets a sperm, and the first cell division is this exact, that looks like the same process. The 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, etc., etc. This cell division is the exact same process that happens energetically at the birth of new life, and every new frontier of consciousness is a new frontier of life. And so it will happen here within each of us also. Yes? And as it does, look at this space in between the 2 circles. That is the space common to both circles. This space is an I shape. There is no coincidence that this is called the 3rd eye. Yes? 2 eyes. The mind, the heart. The heart, the mind, they move into evolutionary relationship with each other as per design. As they do, the 3rd eye opens. This 3rd eye is the gateway to the 5th kingdom. It is the eye through which we behold another whole range of existence. It brings to mind a statement in the Christian Western Bible. And it says this: if thine eye be single, thy body shall be full of light. This may seem to be a mysterious statement, and yet in light of what we have discovered today, if thine eye be single, thy body shall be full of light. It means in that moment of activation, we behold the superluminal world overlaid interlaid within the spectrum of atomics we are habituated to functioning within. A whole realm of exquisite, high aesthetics, energies become available to us. And as the mind tunes into this, it will download and draw to itself a package of this exquisite aesthetic. And it will become some form of creative genius in this world. Okay, people? The number 8 is the master number of the world builder. It is the number of hierarchy, of material mastery, which began as a 4. The numerological number 4 is foundation, pyramid, structure. The 8 goes from the very opposite of angles and lines, which is masculine, to nothing but curves. This is lines having become curves. This is a combination of lines and curves, which again, the masculine, feminine parts of the universe will love lines and curves. People, there's only lines and curves. There's only magicians and mystics. Yeah? There's only fire and water in everything. So these lines have become curves. And the 8 is the symbol of that. It's the symbol of that. It is the symbol of the mastery in this world. That's why all 8 energies carry some ability to master this world. If you're born on the 8th or the 17th or the 26th, or in August, another 8 month, or when your year totals up to 8, all these energies of 8 give you some means of ability to navigate this material world better as a spiritual being. Okay? Doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to be able to navigate it as a spiritual being. Every power holds its challenge, and you must alone accomplish the means and the worthiness by which you may hold this power. This is an individual journey, and many of my talks will go towards showing how we can undertake these journeys. For now, it is enough to know that the highest technology in the kingdom is and will remain still us. How we have come from, where we have come from to be so, where we stand and where we are going to, and what parts of us must be in alignment for this to happen. I hope this is not just theoretical. I hope if you look, you will see many examples in your life of how consciousness has come to you in whichever forms it has come to you, your readiness, your openness, where you have found yourselves on the spectrum between this and this. And we all find ourselves in some place between this, for none are whole complete, or we would not be here as we are. No completion is forever, and if so, you will transcend and you will leave this kingdom and you will have another function to perform on this planet. Coming back to the kingdoms, which I wish to tie in as a closure to this place, for we have explored more in detail the nature of the 5th kingdom and what it is and what we will bring into this world as a result of that. Now we come to why the kingdoms are as they are and what are the 7 kingdoms. Now we talk about, we have a glimpse of the 5th. What could the 6th, what could the 7th be? Just as we have seen that any kingdom can no longer register the existence of the kingdom any more than one above it, which means in every kingdom there exists only one kingdom above it. Nothing else exists. That's all. So the highest ceiling for us as 4th kingdom beings is the genius, is the 5th kingdom, is the kingdom of genius. There is nothing beyond that. That's like the absolute penultimate achievement of mind. And we, with our 4th kingdom, can actually see that is the highest attainment you could possibly ever reach with this mechanism, with this incredible construct, right? And it is true. For it is as high as mind can go. Now, if you were to gather in a room a bunch of geniuses, hard to do. They are still very rare on the planet, although more numerous than ever before. Hallelujah, thank heavens. If you were to gather a bunch of geniuses together, and you were to place them, in front of them, a being of the 6th kingdom, they would all, in unison, agree that they were sitting in front of and in the presence of an extraordinary human being. They themselves consider at the peak of what is maximally possible in evolution. If we had a whole group of, let's imagine. In fact, a great example, a brief and great example comes from, again, from the Western Christian traditions as in the Bible story. I want to take a story of a man who was known as John the Baptist. John the Baptist, and this doesn't matter whether you're a Christian or not, because the story still applies and it still shows the nature of things, and also illuminates, if you are a Christian, a more metaphysical component of creation and of consciousness that is sitting within this scripture. Okay? And it is this. John the Baptist there were many stories about him, but ultimately he was so far out there. This cat, he was like so next level. As he grew up, he suddenly became incompatible with living in villages. They actually cast him out because he would walk around ranting and raving and speaking in tongues as he began to become more and more tuned to another reality that others could not see, nor did anything he said make any sense to them. And they considered him a madman, to be honest. And so they said, look, he's got something about him. He's definitely got an aura about him. He's filled with the touch of God, but he's lost his mind, basically. And so they shunted him out and they said, look, we're not going to kill you or not exile you, but just go and live somewhere else. And if you come, just come briefly, okay? We'll tolerate you. That was what he was extended to. So he lived out in the caves and the deserts and ate locusts and wild honey. That was pretty much his existence, okay? Now, his interaction was primarily with the fourth kingdom. I'm going to assume here John the Baptist taking the role as the sixth kingdom. For the sixth kingdom is indistinguishable. Madness from genius is indistinguishable by the fourth kingdom. For the fourth kingdom can only recognize the fifth kingdom and no higher. Okay? So we need geniuses to be able to tell us what the next level of consciousness is, because they're the only ones that actually go, OMG, that's it right there. Whereas the fourth kingdom is like, no man, that's nonsense. That's just madness. That's just unhinged, ungrounded. I can't comprehend it. You get it? You're seeing this interrelationship, the importance of the closeness of these kingdoms together, how they co-evolve one another, how they coexist together, the dynamics of their interactions. And so, back to John the Baptist, he was in a world of fourth kingdoms. He was a very, very rare being. It was rare enough to find a genius in those days, let alone a sixth kingdom being, who to all intents and purposes cannot even be identified as such. It's just a madman. Luckily, we don't put you down, dog. He was pretty beaten any number of times. Imagine that. A being who touches a state of existence so sublime that he is filled with such a fire, with such a burning truth, with such a revelatory state that his words even jumble. He speaks in poetry and myth and allegory and symbolism, truth so high that he cannot find any regular language to capture these. And so he's known to be speaking in tongues and lose his mind and just, they tolerate him. They know something's coming through, but they do not understand any of it. If there were a genius in such a time, which there was not, sadly, that being would instantly recognize the virtue of this sixth kingdom being and would tell the others, no, this is a special one, please. You may not understand him, but you must revere him. He is a special place. And to some degree, somehow, that actually happened. For he lived his whole life as a madman prophet. He was called the prophet. And it is no coincidence that he was called the prophet or a prophet, because that is what the sixth kingdom is called in our fourth kingdom language. As the genius is called the fifth kingdom, the prophet is the sixth kingdom. Yes. That being who stands in creation and can witness 6/7 of this. So like 86% of the entire entirety of creation flows through this being's network. India is said to have beings like this, who have had beings like this. The great gurus who sit, they just sit. See, the geniuses, the fifth kingdom is the last one that turns the consciousness that it processes into physical form, into physical expression. Okay? It takes on a tangible format as the fifth kingdom. And the fifth kingdom is the last kingdom to turn that kind of energy into a tangible form. In the sixth kingdom, that creative expression now becomes radiatory, solely radiatory. You begin to become an output of a gigantic order, a superluminal gigawatt source. Okay? And wherever you sit, you broadcast a kilometer around you, a gigantic field. And any who sit within this field can be, their subtle bodies can begin to resonate as yours under the power of your repeated high quality emanations, extraordinarily coherent, touched by divine source, extraordinarily beautiful and truthful. These emanations are set up like engine patterns, origins of energy broadcast so strong that others whose weaker centers come in and they just immediately orientate towards these and become aligned. And that's why they say that in the presence of the guru you can become enlightened. This is exactly why and exactly how you can do this if there is such a guru. However, the fourth kingdom cannot tell, remember, if it's a sixth kingdom or if it's a charlatan, maybe a genius, someone who's really figured out how to run the show and develop all the attributes and sharp and intelligent enough to bring through an aspect of creativity that is so profound that they broadcast like the prophet. And the fourth kingdom goes, this is definitely somebody going here. And they pretend, they even assume upon themselves the identity of the sixth kingdom. And yet they are not. That's why these gurus all fall. For they use their genius only to, they have never reached the level beyond it. They just use it to bring through things that bamboozle and retain, cultivate dependency, you see. They never teach you how to fish, even though they claim it. Just sit around me and you'll eventually, one day you'll become enlightened. And that is possibly true if you sit long enough in the field of a genuine one. But how many ungenuine ones have there been, which of course just needs one bad apple? Suddenly you can't tell anymore which ones of the apples in the basket are actually bad apples. And we human beings, being primitive, stupid beings, sometimes throw out all the apples when we discover a bad one, especially somebody goes, this is an enlightenment apple. No, one's had a rotten core. Okay, throw them all out. We don't want to risk it. Well, one of them was an enlightenment apple. So it takes a long time to register these. That's why we need the kingdoms. That's why we need the fourth kingdom to recognize the fifth, and we need the fifth, blessed be you, to recognize the sixth. For the sixth is real. It is radiatory. It does not produce any tangible outcome on this planet. It merely abides, it merely resides, and it emanates continuously. And its impact is gigantic. It is not limited to its own time-space continuum. Okay? It broadcasts above the fifth dimension into the sixth dimension, which transcends time and space as the fifth dimension already does. So it broadcasts into the past, into the future, and into multi-dimensional space simultaneously from one place. The entirety of God broadcasts at 6/7 of its capacity into existence. What a light. Only suns can claim to be such. And now we come to the final place in our journey, the final destination, the goal of humankind, the goal of the 7 great races, that we are only in the 5th race, well past the midpoint, towards the end of the 5th great race, whose purpose is the 7th kingdom. The 7th kingdom is a state of matter so perfectly organized, so able by force of will and love, to sustain its integrity in the presence of every frequency broadcasting in and through and as this universe, as source, as God itself, that none of it is diminished and that the matter is not impacted adversely by this. Instead, matter becomes the most luminous and radiant channel for this light on this planet. And yet, if you look at it with the eyes only, with the two eyes, the eyes that see only surfaces, you will see with the eyes of the fourth kingdom, for the fourth kingdom sees only with the eyes, and it can only see the surface of things. You must look with the single eye if you wish to see the light within everything, and then you wish to see the nature of things. The seventh kingdom looks upon all with the eyes of God and is looked upon by everything which can hold that vision. Not many of us. The seventh kingdom brings divinity to earth, is God incarnate in matter. Only one in hundreds of millions of beings throughout time have ever had the privileged role of assuming this form. This being, for I will call it a being, for so far in the history of humanity, it has actually been only one being throughout time, one being assigned to this magnificent journey of the evolution of humanity into God consciousness, one being the great teacher of the world. No matter which worlds we create and maintain, this being throughout time is the world teacher. This being has been called by some the Maitreya. The Maitreya. So Maitreya is a world teacher. It is a seventh kingdom incarnate. They come in periodically every few thousand years into civilization with a new paradigm, with a new iteration of the most infinite truth, that which humanity has now, since thousands of years, become more able to grasp or appreciate. Some seed which is now able to be planted, which may lead humanity to its next frontier. At the beginning of every frontier of consciousness, the world teacher appears and lays the seed as an incarnate seventh kingdom. The last time this being appeared was as Jeshua ben Joseph, which we know in Christian theology and the Christian Western tradition as Jesus of Nazareth. And to close up this beautiful story of the seventh kingdom so that it may remain in you, I'd like to close with my most favorite moment of contemplating this, which is the biblical story of the meeting of John and Jesus. I am no Christian myself, and yet this story brings me forever to tears and moves me deeply. So may it you. And so John, living his life known only by the voice of God that continuously calls to him, and those who will not listen, he calls to them always, come to the desert, come and live as I live in the winds and the sun and eat the locusts and the honey. They will fill you with the light and you will feel the spirits. You will hear the spirits of God speaking and you will know the truth of what I say. And all refuse him. And so he's like, oh my God, I'm just so alone in this world. And yet that is my destiny, for there are no others. And so I am this way, made this way for a purpose. And this purpose enlivens me, lights me, lives me, is the fire of my being. And so I shall honor it and be its fire. However little I receive the benefits of socialization and friendship and love from others, I have the love of God, some unnameable force within me, lighting my being up and telling me that I am loved beyond measure, beyond description. And so that is the engine of how I can get up every day. And so John the Baptist gets up every day, and he knows only he is called by a force beyond his understanding. And he goes into the villages, and he says, as he is led up, he says, you must come. The time of transformation is upon you. Soon one will walk among us who will bring the word of God to us. And he is come, he is nigh, he is come, he is nigh. He felt it. He had tears in his eyes. He would look to them, and they would look at him, and they'd be moved, but they'd be shocked, and they'd be terrified in horror that somebody could be so moved by the invisible, something they could not see. And he was so obviously moved, and they thought he must be mad. It was convenient to believe this man, he must be mad. He's obviously mad. But something quietly disquieted them. He had something going on they could not discount, something that reached them. And so some few beings, they were like, he's got something. He's called. He calls. He holds the Spirit of the Lord, of God in him, for true. And so they followed him to the river. He said, come to the river and be baptized. Come to the river and be cleansed. Cleanse yourselves of your ways of seeing, of your attachments, of your habits, of your desires, of all the things that trap you in the superficie, the surface of life. And come to where life lives, and I will show it to you. And so more and more believed, and more came, and he was filled with this power. 6/7 of creation, this kingdom. He was filled, and he would stand in the river, and he would be filled with this power, and he would call people to him. People would see him, and they'd be called by his light. They wanted to be close to this light. And so they were drawn to him, and so they would come into the river, and they would say, what shall I do, Master? And he would say, just repent, all the things you have done. Forgive yourself and ask for forgiveness and be washed. Let this waters that I will wash this whole past from you free, so that you may be free to take on something new. You may be reborn as something new. This was the essence of baptism. It was a renewal of self, standing at a gateway where all the old identities must be removed from you energetically in order for you to have room for something else. Your teacup, which was full, had to be emptied in order for it to contain a new beverage, a more exalted beverage. And so people came, and they were cleansed by him, and they felt the power of this transformation. They sat on the riverbanks in their tens, and then their dozens, and then their many dozens, and then their hundreds, and suddenly there were thousands. All of them feeling some way this fire of this man. And every now and then amongst them one would come who was a special being in his own right, a genius of his time, would come and sit amongst these people and see this being, and he would just be sitting, or she would be sitting in wonder and awe and silence. And wherever he would go, he would say, this is the one. This is a prophet. I know it. And they were like, yes. They did not see as he saw, but they felt it. But he saw. And his assurance confirmed them. He saw, he knew. And so he abided and he waited. And surely all that John knew was that he must do this work. So day after day he did. Day after day he felt the Spirit of the life within him pouring forth. And it was just soul after soul after soul after soul would come. And one day he looked up to the next soul. And he stood. And he stopped. And he instantly bowed, and hands caught him before he could go into the water. For he stood in front of the greatest light he had ever beheld. Life itself on this planet made manifest. And the voice said, no. Come. You baptize me. And so he did. He laughed and gave thanks at the fulfillment of the promise that was given to him and assured only to him. And those who sat on the riverbank and felt that promise saw something extraordinary happen that day. They saw John, who they were attuned to, change, become humbled, become full of light, become changed. As one being, he bathed and baptized, then baptized him in return. And this was accomplished. The sixth kingdom, the prophet, was the only one on the planet who could see the seventh kingdom. The only one. And thus it came to pass. And so it shall come to pass again. Now we will know more of it. And today's talk, I hope, has laid a foundational outline for you and brought you closer to this essence of the energies that are our makeup, that are our foundation, that are our birthright. As we stand before the next kingdom, which some have called the kingdom of God, it is one of the first kingdoms of God to open up beyond the realm of thought. And with that, I leave you today. With these thoughts, I leave you today. Thank you for your attention and your time. Please like, possibly subscribe, in order to give this channel the life it deserves. I will see you once again. If you have any comments, please feel free to leave them below. Thank you for discovering Channel Sevn. Thank you for being here with me today.